In today's episode, guys, we're going to be going through different subgenres in rap and deciding who is the best rapper in those said subgenres. Example, we're going to be going through drill, we're going to be going through mumble rap, gangsta rap, and much more. But let's start off today's episode with trap music. So, who do you think is the GOAT of trap music?
This
Lou?
is interesting just because the subgenre exploded in the 2000s, so you can kind of go with the pioneers that defined the genre, such as Jeezy, T.I., or Gucci Mane.
Yeah.
Or you can go towards the mid-2010s where the peak of trap music, you could say, kind of arrived.
And that's where I'm going to go with it.
Really?
I have Future
Okay.
as my best rapper. Out of
I don't
this.
have Future, but
Who do you have?
I respect it. I think I have Jeezy.
Okay, I'm going to say why I have Future. I think that when you got to look at like the peak of trap music, it's definitely within that 2015 range for me. And who was the most dominant within that? You have Future there. If I have to ask myself, what are the best projects to come out of this subgenre? DS2, 56 Nights, Monster. You could have those conversations for those albums, and I think that the run that Future was on was absolutely, like, no one was going to throw him off his fucking game, to be honest with you. So I want to go with Future for
Yeah,
this
I definitely
subgenre.
think that he shifted, the genre by adding in the auto-crooning and giving it more of this comatose style production as
Even
well.
melodic performances within a lot of
Absolutely,
beats.
but I think that Jeezy gets the crown just because he used a lot of his real life experiences to share so many great anecdotes, and he's given us street classics from his Gangsta Grills tapes with DJ Drama all the way to classic albums like The Recession or even something like Thug Motivation 101. And I also feel like where Jeezy gets some of the other trap artists is the fact that obviously he was a pioneer. Obviously he had the impact of trap being introduced on a higher level to the mainstream after he helped Kanye make Can't Tell Me Nothing. And I also feel like when I'm looking at Jeezy's rapping performances, they're far above and beyond someone like Future's because, yes, he can give you some grimy street stuff like Future can, but he could also kick it with legends like Jay-Z on a song like Seen It All.
I just think that if you have
know?
to look at the reason why I had Jeezy in this conversation initially was for that reason being is that he's definitely the best lyricist to come out of this trap
Or
lane.
T.I. T.I. is up
could
there
be in
too.
I still do think that Jeezy's a better lyricist than T.I.
Lyricism-wise?
Yeah, I do think so.
Because T.A. managed to put in like some profound messages
absolutely
within
did,
trap
but
music,
Jeezy's like he's a phenomenal rapper. Like when it
And
comes
his
to be able to
music's
do it.
aged really well.
Absolutely, but I think when you have to look at the highest highs, like when you're going back to trap music, are you going back to Thug Motivation 101?
I
Or are you going
am,
back
absolutely,
to DS2,
bro.
Like, what do you think is a better objectively speaking album? DS2. Same thing for let's
That's
say
an opinion, man.
It's an opinion you and I both share, and I know you do.
Maybe I listened to DS2, in comparison to any other Jeezy album, but I can't deny Jeezy's skills in the mic, bro. I can't.
I do agree, but I do think that Future has had the highest highs. But let's go on to pop rap because this is an interesting subgenre. I feel like in pop rap, you need to be able to reach the masses. You need to be able to make popular rap music, something that's going to have, timeless messaging, but as well, like, I would say a timeless connectivity factor. It needs to be able to be relatable, accessible at the same time, but quality. Like you can't go into a pop rap record and just like be like, okay, this is garbage, and I don't want to fuck with this anymore because it's been catered to millions of people.
Yeah.
But someone like Drake, for example, I find has had that perfect middle point where he could have, let's say classic albums like Nothing Was the Same, Take Care, If You're Reading This It's Too Late, and it could speak on a global presence. So he would be my GOAT pop rap rapper.
And
How about
the
you?
reason why I wouldn't put, let's say, someone like Kanye West or Eminem, which are some of the rappers that we do think about when it comes to the pop rap stratosphere, is just because someone like Kanye, for example, has made multiple albums that are within different subgenres. For example, something like Yeezus being an industrial hip hop album, or even Jesus is King. He gave us a gospel album with that. So it's hard to classify him as that. But with Drake, he really drew that line in the sand on his verse on 100 where he rapped, I would have all your fans if I didn't go pop and I stayed on some conscious shit. And ever since then, it seems like a lot of the songs that he puts out have that goal to go number one or get that radio play. But with that, he's giving you hit records that are awesome, like God's Plan, like Started From the Bottom. And I think that Drake really has that accessibility factor on lock, and he keeps making, for the most part, quality mainstream pop rap music. And I think that he does get the crown in this case. But shout out to Nicki Minaj, shout out to Flo Rida, Pitbull, because they're definitely big guys and women within the pop rap scene. But next up, we do have drill music, and this is a very interesting one because I feel like there's three main regions to look at. You have the Brooklyn drill scene, the UK scene, and then you also have the Chicago drill scene. So which scene is the best to you, and who's the best rapper out of it?
Well, I'm gonna take Chief Keef from the Chicago
Okay.
from the Chicago drill scene.
Nice one.
I think when you got to look at it from an influence level, like you could really make the conversation that Chief Keef was really the one to pop off in this subgenre as far as North America goes. And
Yeah.
even looking at Finally Rich, I don't think there's an album that has achieved that level of quality or hype in the drill scene like Finally Rich did. And even coming in at such a young age, at 17 years old, and dropping something like that, like, how do you do it? It even had like Kanye West and Good Music, signing him just to be able to understand, like, okay, this guy's going to be doing big things with his career and going forward. And he did. Like, he's still dropping quality projects like for him. I feel like when you have to look at even his duality as a producer as well as like a drill producer, he does it as well.
Talking
like,
best rapper here,
like,
though.
but still Chief Keef.
I can't
it's
go
still,
Chief Keef.
It's like even like, okay, you're gonna go with Pop Smoke.
I'm gonna go with Pop Smoke,
Okay, why
absolutely.
though?
And I think that when I'm looking for the best drill rapper, I'm looking at someone that can truly kind of immerse you into their environment and really, sell you through their style and energy. And
Keef does that,
bro.
though.
No one had energy like Pop Smoke. When his
Chief
music
Keef
comes
did.
on, bro,
Chief
he
Keef
shakes a
did.
fucking room, bro.
So
He
does
makes
Chief
heads
Keef.
turn.
So
And
does
I
Chief
feel
Keef.
like with Pop Smoke, when it comes to his 3-project run of Meet the Woo 2, and Shoot for the Stars, Aim for the Moon, you can pull out at minimum 2 classic songs from all those projects. With Meet the Woo, you get PTSD and Welcome to the Party. Meet the Woo 2, you get Invincible or Christopher Walking. Shoot for the Stars, Aim for the Moon, you got Got It On Me or Gangstas. I mean, Faith is not really a Pop Smoke album. It's more of a Republic Records album, just because it was posthumously released.
But even at that, if you want to talk about,
great,
if you want to talk about like Chief Keef's records that have dropped, Love Sosa, I Don't Like, Kobe. There's a lot of big singles that have came from Chief Keef's catalog that have completely changed the way that we listen to
mostly
drill
from
music.
one album though, in terms of Finally
But
Rich.
but going back to Finally Rich, it is the best drill album that's ever came out of this subgenre, and it belongs to Chief Keef.
And I think,
he's
bro,
had that
even
moment,
the impact, and I think also just how distinguishable Pop Smoke's voice is, that deep, commanding nature to his voice was amazing. But you go Chief Keef, I go Pop Smoke. Let us know in the comments. But next up, another interesting one. We have conscious hip hop, and when looking into conscious hip hop, I'm always looking for artists that dedicated their craft to being a vessel to speaking for the people.
Yeah.
And there's so many artists in contention. You have Chuck D, you have KRS-One, Kendrick Lamar, you have Common, you have Tupac, of course, and that's where my pick lies. It's Tupac.
Yeah, I want to go Tupac as well. And my favorite rapper out of all the ones that you just named is Kendrick. But objectively speaking, I do think you have to give it to Tupac, because even with conscious rap, what's beautiful about Tupac is that he was able to have his messages reach millions and millions and millions of people. And we were talking about this earlier, actually, in a live stream where Tupac always made his writing super accessible and always simple to understand, because when you're talking about conscious rap, it can maybe get overbaked at some points.
Yes.
And like there's always a certain fine line between that, what's overbaked and then what's perfectly executed. And I feel like with Tupac's writing, it was always perfectly executed.
That's a great take, just because I feel like, I'm not going to mention any names just because there's so many conscious rappers that I think are doing a great job even to this day. But oftentimes I feel like maybe you won't reach as many people as you'd like to, because the lyricism is a bit too complex.
Yeah, absolutely. And
That's
it's not even a
take on
sales
it.
thing. It's not even a sales thing. It's just like the impact that the conscious
No, but
writing
I
has
think
on a
that
population,
That's the point, is that with conscious music, you want it to reach as many people as it can, and that's what Tupac did, because he went mainstream talking about the subject matter that he did. If it's on a song like Brenda's Got a Baby, him talking about how one person's problem can affect an entire community. And I think that Tupac was just destined to be this political activist in the hip-hop space, because his mother was part of the Black Panther Party. He grew up during that crack epidemic. And I think that when you're looking at Me Against the World, when you're looking at Tupacalypse Now, from the beginning of his career, that was always his mission and purpose as an artist, was to speak about the chaos within the ghettos and really be an artist that's going to get studied in Ivy League schools, bro, like Harvard. There's classes being taught on this guy's fucking literature. So he's a great one to put in there. Obviously, Common is another great one. Kendrick Lamar is someone else you can make the argument for.
Yeah, if you had to ask maybe a new generation listener, like, who's that number one spot, like, they'd probably give it to Kendrick Lamar, because who's the most prominent right now that's doing it. But I would say Tupac for conscious rap. But let's go on to mumble rap. And I think this is the subgenre that gets looked down upon the most, just because it's super unconventional for what hip-hop should be. I mean, hip-hop and rap is really focused on writing and lyricism and clear deliveries.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. And I think that mumble rap has really shifted the way that we listen to rap music. And you could obviously like put a lot of rappers into mumble rap, and it's not a bad thing, just because not all mumble rap is bad. And Playboi Carti is the perfect example of that. And you could take Carti and you could put him into experimental, just because of what he's been doing with rap music and the vocal inflections and the production choices. But I will say mumble rap, just because if you go through his catalog, a lot, if not most performances are low-key inaudible. And it's not a bad thing because it almost adds to the production. It adds to the mood of it. Like Playboi Carti's music should not be dissected, and like been looking like, okay, this line doesn't make sense, or this is not connected properly with this. Whereas if it's mostly just, it's a mood, it's a feeling, and I don't think that anyone does it as good as Playboi Carti, at least in my opinion.
I think Young Thug and Future could be looped into the mumble rap category just because they do have times within songs where their lyrics are totally incomprehensible, to be honest with you. But I would put them more within that trap category if I had to lock them down into one. But I do think that, Playboi Carti is the perfect embodiment of a great mumble rapper just because he knows his role. Like it feels like he's being complementary to the production, and I also feel like he knows how to fill in spaces really well. For example, on a song like Lean For Real, there's not a second where he's not providing something vocally. If it's ad-libs, if it's him switching up the type of vocal inflections, if it's him adding ad-libs while Skepta's
even
rapping.
on something like let's say Number 9, like off of Self-Titled, like completely inaudible. You won't be able to make out most of the lyrics on that song, but just the ad-libs and how quirky everything works together with production that's usually provided by Pierre Bourne, art dealer, it usually always works really well. So I would go, I would go Playboi Carti for mumble rap.
He could literally just rap, like say that 50 times over a track,
or like
it'll be fire, bro.
You know those old Carti ad libs add so much to a track.
He gives you the most while giving you the least, and I think that's why Carti is the best mumble rapper. But moving on, we have experimental hip hop, and this is an interesting one just because I feel like so many people will throw so many different artists or albums within the experimental category. Like you could literally open up your album with a 2-minute loop of you farting, and some people are gonna say that could be looped into experimental.
Yeah, and there's also there's no lines, when it comes to experimental rap. Like you'll have let's say Death Grips doing something completely different than what you'll find let's say Drake fucking doing in the mainstream. And that's what's interesting about experimental is that it's always about going against the grain. It's always about being anti-establishment. And I think that when I look at experimental hip hop, the one name that really comes to mind at the highest quality of rap is MF Doom. And where the experimenting comes with him is within the themes and let's say all the connective tissue with his writing, the writing styles and the patterns. There's still no one able to replicate how he was able to do his writing back then. Even the whole moniker of MF Doom was so experimental for back then and what was going on with it. Even his production choices, getting all of these sample flips from let's say areas of the world like Brazil and bringing that into a North American market was super refreshing for what was coming out. Even looking at the projects like Food and Mad Villainy, those are the best experimental records, in my opinion, to ever come out.
And
so I'm going to have MF Doom in there.
Absolutely. Some other contenders would be Tyler, the Creator. You could put JPEG Mafia in there.
JPEG Mafia is a big one for me.
You can put Childish Gambino. But all of those artists have cited MF Doom as their biggest inspiration. And I think that it's just because MF Doom has always gone against the grain. If it's been his public persona, if it's been his emphasis on punchlines, his quirky rhyming style, just that abstract hip-hop lyricism has really taken the whole underground scene by storm. And I do think he's the king of the underground. And I think that he's really revolutionized hip-hop as we know it. And for that reason, I would put him as the GOAT of experimental hip-hop. Even though you can throw in Danny Brown for this modern day, I feel like he definitely deserves his love. Also, Outkast have been experimental at times, but I wouldn't fully loop them into this category.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. But let's keep going on with this. Let's go into Gangsta Rap, because you could put so many different subgenres into Gangsta Rap. I feel like it's more of an umbrella genre, but you could take drill music and trap and have it considered Gangsta Rap.
Mafioso rap too.
Absolutely. But I think when it comes down to Gangsta Rap, the best rapper I've ever seen do it is Biggie for a multitude of different reasons. One of them being catalog. I mean, I've spoken so many times in the podcast about life after death and Ready to Die and what those albums have done for the rap genre. Even talking about that persona that he's built up, the accessibility with Gangsta Rap, the ability to be able to craft these projects and have them live on for 30 plus years. Jay-Z's in that conversation for me as well. But I think when I have to, tell someone who I think is the best Gangsta Rap, rapper of all time, I'm definitely going Biggie.
With
on my
Biggie,
end.
I respect that. I mean, definitely there's certain members from the Wu-Tang Clan you could put in there. You can definitely, for modern day hip hop, Schoolboy Q, I feel like gets that crown with Freddie Gibbs and Pusha T not being too far behind. For me, when it comes to Gangsta Rap, it's really all about authenticity. It's about making you believe whatever street anecdotes that they're serving you. And I think that with Biggie, just for how cinematic his music was, how great his storytelling chops were on songs like Kick in the Door or, Somebody's Gotta Die and countless others, I feel like he would really always put you on the scene. And like you said, he embodied gangster rap because just of the charisma that he had too. Like, he really was, to me, always that Don Corleone of hip hop. So he played the part, he looked the part. It was a perfect, entry point for gangster rap and also for concept albums within that realm.
For sure. Let's keep going on with this. Let's go on to emo rap, and this is a subgenre that really immersed, I would say, in like the mid 2010 decade, like towards the later end of it. And
with the SoundCloud rap scene
absolutely
emerging.
And I think there's a lot of different rappers that you could put into this conversation. Lil Peep being one of them, XXXTentacion, Juice WRLD's in that conversation. Lil Uzi Vert could be considered into this conversation as well. But I think who is the best that has ever done it? Lil Peep for sure. And I think that looking at his catalog, there's definitely projects in there that you could go into and enjoy a fuckload of music. But for me, it was his voice and the attempt that he brought into it. Like, as you were mentioning in another recording that we're doing, like that Kurt Cobain feeling to his music.
Bro, it's
is
like
so
listening
prominent.
to Kurt Cobain on trap beats.
Exactly. Like, and that's what's
what it's
cool
like.
about it, is that there's this genuine, authentic feel to his music that needs to be present in emo rap, because there needs to be like that dark feeling to it. There needs to be a sort of cloud over
and
your head.
And he was
while you're
actually
listening
inspired by 2000s emo rock bands, and I think that's why out of all these rappers on this list, he's the most traditional emo rapper in a sense, because he kind of pays homage to those emo singers from the past. Someone else that I have in here who might take the top spot is XXXTentacion, and I think that he's definitely the most versatile artist out of anybody else here. And I think that if you're going to look at it from a bare bones perspective, if you're going to give all of these rappers a microphone and an acoustic guitar, next to them, XXXTentacion is going to sound the best, bro.
Yeah,
listen to a song like Numb the Pain and countless others, and I think that he is the best raw vocalist, taking all the auto-tune aside. And also just songs like Jocelyn Flores, songs like Remedy for a Broken Heart. He really had a way to touch the youth. And same thing for Juice WRLD on the relatability factor, and also just that youthful presence. I feel like he really connected with his fan base super well too. But in terms of emo rap at its core, I think Lil Peep is the best option to go with. And projects like Come Over When You're Sober, fantastic.
Yeah, fantastic listens. But let me keep going on with this. Let's go on to horrorcore. So there's a lot of different things that go into horrorcore. I mean, the biggest part of it, I think, is definitely the aggressive content matter and the super dark subjectivity that goes into the writing. And there's a lot of different, acts and rappers that you could put into this conversation. 3 6 Mafia could be considered here. But in my opinion, no one has ever done it better than Eminem has. And I have different albums that I could, bring into this table. I mean, bringing in the Slim Shady LP that's in the background right now, bringing in Relapse. Like, these are albums where you go through the writing and you're horrified from what you're reading, but kind of want to bop your head to it. And then you find out that these are some of your favorite projects to ever be released throughout the genre. And what's interesting is that horrorcore is not necessarily able to be accessible, but Eminem made it accessible. That's what's so interesting about it too. And even looking at that whole Slim Shady alter ego, there's never been a better, let's say, alter ego that's been made throughout this subgenre. So how do you feel about him having there?
It's very interesting. I think that Eminem is the best horrorcore rapper, but you do have other acts like Insane Clown Posse, which I wouldn't put as one of the best, but they were definitely influential in the scene. 3 6 Mafia with their haunting production style from their era as well. But I do think that, Eminem has to get the crown here just because of his cold-blooded lyrics and just the cadences and accents that he uses for the horrorcore subgenre. Fantastic too, and he never took himself too seriously, and the audience can't either, bro. Like, even if he's talking about choking someone until their vocal cords don't work, you have to admire it as satire, and I just think that Eminem is the best in that lane without a doubt. But let's now move on to psychedelic rap. We kind of been agreeing on the last couple of ones.
Yeah.
Let's see if we agree on this one too. And with psychedelic rap, I feel like it has to be music that really takes you on a trip, that really makes you feel like you're floating, and that takes you to another world, honestly. And I feel like the main players here would have to be Travis Scott, Kid Cudi, A$AP Rocky, Flatbush Zombies.
And I'm gonna have Flatbush as my number one.
Flatbush is your number one.
Flatbush
really,
is my
why?
number one because kind of the Lil Peep situation where I feel like they've stick to the traditional sense of LSD and psychedelic rap the most. I mean, even the chemistry between Eric, Michi, and Juice, just seeing them live as well, having projects that have stayed in my rotation over time, like Odyssey and like Vacation in Hell, and even classic mixtapes, you could access all you want from them. And I feel like they've done it differently than everyone else has. I'm like, someone like Travis Scott, yes, I could say, and this is in this conversation for psychedelic rap, but is he truly a psychedelic rapper?
I think he definitely is truly a psychedelic rapper, just
conversation,
because, bro, it's prominent in all of his projects, bro. Even if you want to take it back to Days Before Rodeo, a song like Drugs You Should Try It, you have a beat that has these electric guitar riffs, and then you have Travis's hypnotic vocals. Like, I think that's something that he's always catered to, is to have these trippy sounding tracks. And I think that Travis's vocal layering, everything he pours into his art, is always with the intention of taking you to another realm, and that's why he's great at world building. You know, something like Astroworld, he really makes you feel like he's at a fucking amusement park, taking you on a ride from song to song. And I mean, A$AP Rocky also comes to mind for me, but I'd maybe put him more within the cloud rap realm of things, where there's a lot of chopped and screwed influence and a bunch of different sounds too. But he could be looped in here as well. Yeah. Why not Kid Cudi here?
It just depends, because like you could also say that he's made like rock, you know, hip hop at a certain point. You could also say that he's made like, let's say, I'm not sure, like even like pop rap to a certain extent. So it depends. Like I don't feel like he's the full traditional sense of like,
I feel you.
Like, you know, psychedelic hip hop. But let's keep going on with this, and this is gonna be our last category for today, and that's jazz rap. So jazz rap is one of my favorite subgenres, just because of how relaxing it is and like how nice it is just to kick on like a project like the Lower End Theory and listen to all these jazz instrumentals. And I'm gonna give it to A Tribe Called Quest off the bat, bro. I genuinely do think that when it comes to jazz rap, they are the pioneers and they're the ones that have executed on it the best. So do you agree with that take with me, bro?
I think that is a great take. I mean, A Tribe Called Quest were really revolutionary in terms of giving you these jazz and funk samples. And not only that, I mean, besides Ali producing, you also had Jay Dilla, who did an amazing job on beats, rhymes, and life. So they also have him bringing in these amazing samples. The Roots also have to be in conversation, because what they were able to do in terms of bringing live instruments, like hearing Black Thought. I think Black Thought is maybe the best jazz rapper, just because the way that he sounds over live trumpets, live saxophones, it's fucking flawless material. Apart from that, Blue from Blue in Exile as well has to be mentioned here for me, just because of how calming and how also relatable he is as an MC. But I think I'm going Black Thought from the Roots.
Wow, that's interesting.
Would you go with Q-Tip or Phife Dawg? Like, what are you saying?
I want to give Tribe it as a whole. Like
but it's one rapper. It's the best rapper of the subgenre.
Probably Q-Tip. I think
I'd
probably give it to Q-Tip. So guys, let us know how you feel about our takes in the comment section. And listen, we didn't mention stuff like G-Funk or, you know, rock hip hop. So we may do a part 2 to this. So if you guys want to see it, let us know in the conversation, and let us know, did you agree with our picks or not. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode, and we'll catch you in the next one.